We're a week out from the first game of the Oklahoma City Thunder era. It's time to take a hard look at just how this team is going to be, and that's what we'll do today on One-on-One with ThunderMadness.com. I'm Mike Kaler from the Dodge Sports Desk. Joining me today are Thunder beat writers Mike Baldwin and Darnell Mayberry. Guys, this time next week, I think people are already going to be lining up at the Ford Center. So let's talk about the question that everybody seems to be asking me, and I'm sure they're asking you, is what's the win total going to look like? How good or bad are these guys going to be, and how much of a difference does that Ford Center magic make in that total?
Well, in our Sunday special section that everybody needs to go purchase Sunday previewing the season,
good job,
I have a 32-50 record, which is a 12-game improvement. It's not near the playoffs yet. I think, Darnell, you're slightly a little bit higher. Most people are 30 or less, but they're going to improve some. And like you said, I think the Ford Center will be a big factor in that. It had a big impact for the Hornets when they were in town. PJ referred to it the one preseason game. He said this will be one of the top 2 or 3, as he likes to call it, buildings in the league. And it is. It helps you during long road stretches. You come home, you're a little tired, the crowd lifts you up. Anytime you have tight games in the fourth quarter, I don't know if you can put a number on it worth 4 or 5 wins. Darnell probably could speak better to that than I because of his experience with the Hornets, but it's got to be worth at least 4 or 5 wins, just the Ford Center, in addition to a better roster.
What do you think, Darnell?
You know, I'm writing about this. I don't want to spill the beans, but I hesitate even saying the number, but I'm going to say 35. 35, I think they're going to get up to 35. Now, they have a lot of weaknesses, three-point shooting, interior post play, but I think they have a lot of strength, too. I mean, you look at Kevin Durant and Jeff Green going into their second years. I think that's going to help this team out a lot. The home court, like Mike said, I think they can compete with a lot of Western Conference teams. Denver is not, an elite team anymore. You got Minnesota, Memphis, Sacramento, Golden State's going down. This team, I don't think, is going to be the worst team in the league, like a lot of people would lead you to believe. And then I think they could compete with, sort of the powers, the San Antonios, the Dallases, the Houstons, Phoenix. I think LA, I think they can compete with those teams. I think, we haven't even talked about the Eastern Conference. I mean, they got to play those Eastern Conference teams twice also, each team. So at the end of the day, I think they're going to have 35 wins.
Talk a little bit more about Durant. I mean, one of the big things that made a difference for the Hornets to go from 16 wins to a better season when they came to Oklahoma City was, hey, Chris Paul showed up and he could play some ball. Talk a little bit about the development of Durant from year 1 to year 2. How much better is he going to be in this whole mix?
I mean, most players make a big leap between year 1 and year 2. One, because they know it, whether it's Major League Baseball or the NBA or something. The travel schedule. You know how to pace yourself. They always talk about rookies hitting a wall because they're not used to playing near that many games their first season. So part of that just comes from learning the system. The other part comes from learning what you need to work on your game better. And, I mean, PJ said it from the start. Jeff Green, Kevin Durant, the 2 players they're building around for the future, had outstanding summers. They worked hard in the deficiencies in their game, and I think both of them will take a leap forward this year. It may not be able to be monitored so well just on pure numbers. I mean, he averaged 20 a game last year. We've been writing about and debating about it. Does that mean 23, 24? But it's other things. It's defense. It's being able to post up better. And with a better roster, 22, 23 points may be enough because you have more teammates chipping in and helping you both on the offensive and defensive end. So I think he's going to be a lot better player and closer to an all-star. I don't think he's quite an all-star this year, but I think he's going to get a lot closer.
Where do you put him as far as quality guys in the league in year 2?
In terms of year 2, I mean, I think he's going to be right up there. I think he's going to show a lot of improvement just because, last year he had to do so much offensively. I mean, he had to basically carry this load for his team offensively. He didn't really have anybody that could set him up. I think this year Earl Watson is going to be into that role. Russell Westbrook, you're going to see sort of take on that role and help Kevin out. And I think that's going to boost his efficiency a little more than it did last year. Also, like Mike said, he's learning how to post up more, and he's becoming a better all-around player. You saw that at the end of last season. So I think this year is going to be a good year for him.
And Mike, I think that's one thing about this team that we've talked about it, but until we see it day in, day out, month in, month out, it's the Joe Smith, the Desmond Masons. You got Wheezy, as they call him, Mr. Chris Wilcox inside. You have some other veterans that will be able to take some of the load off these younger guys. The last year they had a little bit of that with Collison and Wilcox, but that was about it. You're going to have more depth. You're going to have more veterans. Some of those guys will on occasion, Mason will step up and have 21 night. He may only have 4 or 6 the next night, but you're going to have some nights to where Durant doesn't have to do it all, like Darnell was referring to last year. If he had a bad night, they had no chance to win. There should be occasions this year, not often, but occasions when Durant doesn't have a good game and they still find a way to win a game. That's what's going to determine how many more wins they get this year.
Another thing people have been asking about is kind of even further in the future. You know, if they're going to be this bad, at least we'll get a high draft pick out of it. You know, hey, maybe Blake Griffin will come play for the Thunder. What do you see them doing in the future? They've got a bunch of draft picks. They're going to have a bunch of cap money, cap room where they can spend a little bit of money. Is next year when they go out and try to go after a real shooter or a real guy, a real center, after this year kind of the rebuilding gets done?
Sam Presti, the GM, I mean, he wants to take this thing basically in stages. I mean, if he feels like his guy is out there next year, there are a couple quality guys on the market next year. I think Carlos Boozer's one of them. Off the top of my head, I think he is. If he opts out, if he feels like the quality guys out there that he wants, then he'll go after him. He's shown that he's willing to go after guys and make moves. But if he doesn't feel like the right guy is on the market, then he's proven that he's not going to go after a guy just to do something. He's not going to make moves just to do them. So it's hard to say whether next year will be that year or if they're just going to try to use whatever draft pick they get to bolster the roster.
And Mike, we get way ahead of ourselves when we're talking about mascots, how many wins, all that. But the one thing in February, fans, we'll have to watch for here is he's stockpiled draft picks. He's got 2 first-rounders next year. It's guys like Desmond Mason and Joe Smith. He may peddle. If he sees we're definitely not going to be in the playoff run, which we wrote last Sunday, they may have a better record for a while than they think. He may not, quote, mail it in and trade quite as quickly as he did last year if they're at least somewhere, within 5 games of the playoff race or something. But if they fall out, he may trade somebody like that for another draft pick because he knows they're still building for the future, or he may want to say this is good chemistry. I think February this year, it's not a slam dunk like last year in Seattle where he just shipped off guys for draft picks. I think that's one of the interesting developments this season is how good do they get to where he's tempted maybe not to trade somebody for a draft pick because he's starting to like what he sees here. So watching what Sam does throughout the season is going to be one of the interesting backdrop stories to this, depending on how this roster comes together.
All righty, thanks a lot, guys. Remember, folks, if the Thunder are playing anywhere, these guys are going to be there. Darnell even went to Montana, for crying out loud. You can read all their stories and the best coverage of this team anywhere at newsok.com, thundermadness.com, and every day in the Oklahoman.